Public Defender Robert Famiglietti of the Parole Revocation Unit. Hello, sir.
This is a revocation hearing to determine whether you have violated the conditions of your release. I will review and make findings of fact as to each of the charges against you. The state, not you, has the responsibility to prove the allegations by a preponderance of evidence. That is, the better or weightier evidence must establish that, more probable than not, the allegation is true. If I do not find that there's a preponderance of evidence to support a violation of one or more of the conditions of your parole, I will reinstate your parole, which means releasing you and placing you back on parole supervision. If I find that you have violated one or more of the conditions of your parole, I will consider whether or not your parole should be revoked. If I recommend revocation, I will make a recommendation as to an appropriate sanction. My recommendation will be given to a panel for a final decision. If the panel wishes to impose a sanction beyond my recommendation, a supplemental hearing will be provided to justify additional confinement. The testimony at today's hearing will be taken under oath. Mr. Walker, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or solemnly sincerely affirm, as the case may be, that the evidence you shall give concerning this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, or upon penalty of perjury?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. First, I will read you your rights. Then we will review the parole violation charges that the state, your parole officer, is bringing against you. Then I will review and identify exhibits filed for the record. Your attorney will have an opportunity to present all relevant testimony and conduct cross-examination. After considering all the evidence presented, I will announce my findings. If I find that you have violated one or more of the conditions of your parole, your attorney will have an opportunity to speak to your background and history. Do you have any questions about the purpose or procedure before we begin?
No, ma'am.
You have important rights at this hearing, which I now will review with you. You have the right to be represented by an attorney. You have the right to receive written notice of charges of violation. You have the right to review the evidence against you before this hearing. You have a right to submit evidence in support of your case. At this hearing, you have the right to call and examine voluntary witnesses and to cross-examine adverse witnesses. Do you understand these rights?
Yes.
We now will review the charges that the state, your parole officer, is bringing against you and the information underlying each charge. Charge 1, GPS. You were placed on GPS by your previous parole officer and signed your GPS agreement on September 16th, 2024. On October 5th, 2024, at approximately 3 a.m., your GPS had no signal and a low battery. Your GPS never got a point again. Subsequently, you are in violation of parole condition number 1, release direction. Charge 2, obedience to the law. On October 8th, 2024, Waterbury Police found you in a park going in and out of consciousness, and you appeared to be under the influence of drugs. Waterbury Police asked for your identification, but you could not give it due to the state you were in. Waterbury Police went into your pockets to look for ID and found 34 glass envelopes that contained a white powdery substance, which later tested positive for cocaine. You were then arrested by the Waterbury Police and charged with possession of narcotics with intent to sell. Subsequently, you are in violation of your parole condition number 1, release direction. Charge 3, drugs. On October 8th, 2024, Waterbury Police found you in a park going in and out of consciousness, and you appeared to be under the influence of drugs. You were overdosing and medics were called and you were brought to St. Mary's Hospital to get evaluated. Waterbury Police went into your pockets to look for ID and found 34 glass envelopes that contained a white powdery substance, which later tested positive for cocaine. You were then arrested by Waterbury Police and charged with possession of narcotics with intent to sell. Subsequently, you are in violation of parole condition number 1, release direction. The state has filed the following exhibits. Exhibit A, remand to actual custody. Exhibit B, parole conditions. Exhibit C, notice of parole violation. Exhibit D, parole violation report. Exhibit E, Waterbury Police report ending in 656. GPS monitoring agreement. GPS, and Exhibit G, GPS position history, and Exhibit I, oh no, there's no Exhibit I, sorry. It stops at Exhibit G's GPS position history. The state found an addendum to Exhibit D, which states on November 21st, 2024, Mr. Walker was found guilty of possession of controlled substance first offense. He was sentenced to 3 months jail under docket ending in 233. Counsel, did you receive the notice of parole violation report, and the other documents that were marked for identification purposes?
Yes, I have.
And defense has also filed Exhibit 1, parole accomplishments and future plans for parole reinstatement. And today we have no witnesses. And it is now the defense opportunity to present evidence to speak to any of the evidence submitted. Counsel?
Yes, I don't believe there's sufficient evidence by the preponderance standard as the charge one. Merely they're alleging that there was no signal at 3 a.m. I don't believe that's a failure to charge just because they had no signal at that point in time. This is the only allegation of that. He'd been on parole for 4 years. As to charge two, he was charged with possession with intent to sell, but there's absolutely no indicia of sale. This is a simple possession case. They responded to someone who was going in and out of consciousness. He couldn't produce his ID because of the quote state he was in. There's no hand-to-hands described. There's no indicia of sale. There's absolutely no reason for the police to have charged him with this charge of sale. So I just don't want any conclusion drawn as to that charge. This is a simple possession case where he had ingested too much cocaine. Thank you. No other comment as to the preponderance.
Thank you. Regarding charge one, GPS, I make a finding based on State's Exhibits B, D, F, and G. Regarding charge two, obedience to the law, I make a finding based on Mr. Walker's conviction as well as State's Exhibits B, D, and E. Charge three, drugs, I make a finding based on State's Exhibits B, D, and E. That concludes the fact-finding portion of this hearing. Before I make my recommendation, your attorney will have an opportunity to speak to your background and history. Counsel?
Yes, as I stated earlier, my client was supervised for almost 4 years with only 2 treatment referrals and being placed on GPS as sanctions in that entire time he completed the treatment. This is an unfortunate situation as well, in that the basis for this violation is essentially him overdosing on cocaine. He clearly has an issue. I don't know why the PO is recommending total revoke. I think that is exorbitant. I don't think he should sit in jail until next December, this coming December. He unfortunately had too much cocaine. He has a problem. He's a single 49-year-old man. He receives significant familial support from his sister, brother, daughter, and his daughter's mother. His mother, my client's mother, tragically passed away in a house fire, which is a significant stressor for my client. He took courses previously at his Nantucket Community College while incarcerated and was due to begin social work school in January of 2024. He was employed at ADUSA from September 20th until his remand. He worked full-time at Restaurant Depot for 6 months. He worked full-time at Safety Zone in Guilford. He was applying and filling out applications with Kamar Brown at PRU. Received documentation while at CPA. He was doing that. He was just beginning a new job at ADUSA Distribution in Manchester. He was in med management and group therapy at Intercommunity. He completed App Foundation on 2 occasions, as I referred to earlier. He suffers from an inflammatory disease. He's been attending AA meetings once weekly on Tuesdays. Upon reinstatement, he'd like to be placed in a halfway house in Hartford, Connecticut, and go back to Assunta Community College for Human Services, and go back to his full-time position at ADUSA, excuse me. As I stated, my client has a treatment issue. It's not going to be solved in jail. He's been held since the incident, since October 8th. His sentence is up on January 8th. I'd ask for that January 16th date, please. Thank you.
Counsel, you referred to Mr. Walker as being supervised for how long in the community?
We have him paroled on 12/4/20.
So That was his original discharge date. He was recently correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Walker, where you were just released in August. I have that you were only in the community for about a month and a half. Right. Yeah, so he was in the community for only a month and a half. So
Right,
he was
that's not
just
the information we had, but even still, regardless of the time period, there aren't a lot of graduated interventions or sanctions here. They were all for treatment and as a result of his drug use. This would have been a good top as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Walker, being that I have that this is your fourth violation in addition to one top placement since being discharged of special parole in 2020. You were in the community for about a month and a half. You received one misconduct in that time frame. In addition to, at the time of your arrest, your whereabouts were unknown from the halfway house. And you did receive a new conviction while on this period of supervision. With that all being said, I recommend revoke and reparole on September 25th, 2025, which is an approximate 11-month sanction. I recommend the following conditions: no consumption of alcohol, no contact with victims VP, LM, and VK, general no contact with Sitco bag located at 109 Berlin Turnpike in Berlin, Connecticut, halfway house placement, mental health evaluation, no operation of a motor vehicle without the express permission of your parole officer. My findings and recommendations will be forwarded to the board, and you will receive official written decision from the board. And your board review is scheduled on January 16th, 2025. On that day, the board's going to take a look at your case. They can lessen my recommended sanction, let my recommended sanction stand, or they can impose a sanction longer than what I have recommended, being that you're on supervision until December 2025. Okay? So those are the three things that could happen on January 16th, and you'll receive written decision from the board within that week.
May I add something? It was something that you said that was, I think, wrong. I got parole from the halfway house. I was never missing from the halfway house. I was on parole home in the community.
You had your own, because it said that your whereabouts at the time of your arrest, because your GPS went off. So if your whereabouts weren't unknown, that's how the violation read, was that your whereabouts were unknown because your GPS, and then it never had a signal again for about 2 days.
Yeah, but I wasn't in the halfway house at that time.
Okay, but your whereabouts were still unknown given the fact that
I got you.
Your GPS monitoring bracelet wasn't working for about two days.
Okay. So, sir, on the 16th, the board is going to meet. Call me on the next day, the 17th of January, and I'll let you know what their final decision was. Okay, sir?
All right. Thank you.
All right. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right.
Thank you, P.O. Saunders.
Thank you.
You